Hey guys, this is my Module 2 assignment. The quality's not very great, but just bear with me. I'm going to jump right in here to question number 1. Alright, how will you keep students informed of their progress during the grading term? I plan on incorporating online forums into my classroom, such as Canvas, Google Classroom, or Blackboard, if it's still around by the time I'm teaching. I want students to be able to monitor their grades whenever they wish, and it's extremely invaluable to be able to have access to prior and future assignments in one definitive space. Um, Students take advantage of these tools and really use them to their benefit because I know I definitely do, and I didn't have those types of tools in high school, so I feel that if students are able to access materials online and see their grades and performance, they're going to do better and they're going to keep track of that. And it also allows parents to be able to keep track of their students as well, which brings me to question number 2. How will achievement be monitored and recorded during the grading period? As recommended in Chapter 10 of our Teaching Strategies text, I will use formative assessment methods in order to make sure that my students are comprehending what we are going over in class. I like the idea of having report cards sent to parents so that they know how their students are doing. And however, though, with the online classroom aspect, as stated before, parents can be involved and notified much easier than just expecting students to hand over a report card to their parents because as former high school students, we all know that that doesn't always occur. So, by constantly updating the online classroom, students will know how to view their progress, and there's going to be no room for guessing. They're just going to be able to access what they need when they need it, and it's just an easy way to keep the classroom organized and keep future assignments just in one space. Question 3. How will effort and knowledge be weighed in your grading? I will count participation as a grade in my classroom because I believe it is important for students to be discussing what they think in class. I either want to have a sheet with all of my students' names on it that I can mark whenever someone participates, or I can mentally recollect when my students talk. I would more so do that second option, however, if the class didn't have a lot of issues with participation. But on the occurrence that there are problems with participation in the classroom, I feel that marking when students talk will be a good motivator to encourage participation because students work harder when things are graded or there is a grade involved, and so it's just a little motivator that's going to help push kids to actually want to talk in the classroom. But as long as I know that a student is working hard, I believe that their efforts should definitely be rewarded. Not all students are going to perform at the same level, so not all assessments will be weighted the same. It goes on a case-by-case basis practically, so if a student's doing well, they're going to get something good, and if they're not doing well, then they're going to be notified on our online forum, or their parents will be notified, and it just makes things a lot easier in this regard. Next question, how does good or bad behavior affect grading? I believe that having a weekly grade for behavior is a good motivator for students. If they're misbehaving in class, it will reflect on our online forum, which is sort of like the quintessential guide here, the online forum. So I want parents to be notified if their kids are behaving inappropriately. And I pulled up a little resource entitled Grading in Secondary Schools, Academic Matters, but So Does Behavior, written by Randy Sprick. And in this article, there's a strong emphasis that creating a system for grading behavior is a good way to let students know how to act in the classroom. For example, letting students know that they have 3 strikes for the week or even the semester when it comes to bad behavior outbursts will limit off-task behavior. And it would be important to show students in this case for using this method examples of bad or off-task behavior so they know what not to mimic or what not to do in the future. And good behavior as well can be shown, so examples of just good behavior can be implemented as an example for students to use in the future. Good behavior affects students positively, of course, so for each week of good behavior there can be points given that add up to receiving a late homework pass, for example. So if a student does well for an entire month and a half, say they earn 15 to 20 points, and they could apply those points to earning a homework pass or a late homework pass. I don't believe, however, that homework passes should be handed out like candy and that they should definitely be earned. So I wouldn't reward weekly behavior per se, but more so monthly behavior as a motivator. Lastly, for this video, I decided to go over the question, to what extent do you believe that the gender of the teacher or the student influences the selection of classroom rules? For that matter, explain why teacher and or student cultural contexts matter when designing a classroom management plan. Well, I believe that the gender of the teacher or students has a big impact on the selection of classroom rules. There's a lot of factors that affect planning, as seen in Chapter 4 of our textbook, and depending on the climate of the classroom, students can react differently for varying reasons. Inclusiveness regarding gender has become a really hot topic in recent years, and it's important to make everyone feel comfortable in the classroom. Students may not feel well situated participating in the classroom in front of their peers of the same or opposite sex, and it's important to remain sensitive to students' various needs and take note of how scholars react during the school year. Getting to know your students is essential in all of these questions, because it's really based on an individual learning basis and on an individualized plan, because everybody's going to be learning differently and all kids are going to be reacting differently. So getting to know your students is really key in just any regard. So going off of that, I would like to know how my students react so that conflicts can be combated and addressed before they become actual problems and distractions in the classroom. Disrespect in the class often occurs due to gender, and bullying can become a major problem if quarrels go unnoticed. And that's a big thing that I noticed in my high school experience, that when teachers didn't notice just boys making fun of girls or just using expressions like boys being boys, the classroom tended to get out of hand socially, as well as going over things in class. Just participation wasn't very great in some of my classrooms because of those aspects. I think it's important to as well reassure students to visit me during my office hours if they ever feel uncomfortable or have a complaint about something happening in class. Student cultural contexts matter when designing a classroom management plan, because those factors create the classroom environment itself. Every child has different needs and a different background and a different story. If their feelings aren't taken into account, then they will not feel safe in the classroom and will not have the potential to do as well as they could have if someone were on their side. It's important to be inclusive to all students no matter what. And I believe that, of course, some students are going to be struggling. As an educator, it's our job to recognize the red flags and just know your students and resolve problems. And that concludes my module 2. Thank you.